Next up, we have Andy Josh, who is going to show us about audio mixing and new features in Unity 5.
Hello. OK, it works. Sweet. That's a good start for an audio talk. Hi, so my name is Andy. I work at a company called Unity, and basically make a game engine. So to begin with, put your hand up if you're a programmer. OK, so you copy-paste code. Yeah, OK, cool. Put your hand up if you're an artist. OK. Put your hand up if you're an audio person. OK, you have a beard, and you're an audio person. Are you in a band as well? Ah, right. I have a theory that every talk, someone will have a beard, work in the game industry, and they play like drums in a band. But obviously, that's not the case. Cool. So here is me cosplaying as a baby. I showed this photo to someone from Intel, and they said they still program on this keyboard. So by that, you can guess I'm pretty young. And I'm a Unity evangelist. No one actually has any idea what an evangelist is. I don't even. But basically, what I do is I travel around Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and I basically show off Unity. I show people how to make games, either through audio, through art, or basically sort of any way. I like playing games as well as making them, so just send me loads of games, and I'll play them or buy them. But don't send me a game for like $1 million, because then now I've got to buy it. So I'm going to be talking about audio in Unity. I actually really don't like PowerPoint at all, so I'm going to be doing most of this actually in Engine, actually showing and building up some audio for a scene and mixing it and doing all sorts of really cool stuff with gunshots and things like that. So I'm going to keep this bit very brief. So old audio in Unity 4, you had a couple of sort of like set things. You had like an audio listener which would listen to sound, and like it's basically your ears. You had audio sources which would create audio, such as like where a gun has been shot or where an explosion takes place or something like that. You can then do really advanced things like play, pause, and stop. That was kind of it. You had sort of like limited filters and effects. There was limited control of like groups. So if you had like 1,000 dogs, you couldn't really filter 1,000 dogs audio. You had to go through and set them all individually. And most tweaking was done on the assets. So you had to like go into another piece of software, like make it a bit more echoey, and then sort of bring it back. You had that back and forth process. And it basically wasn't that visual. So we had loads of problems to solve. So we needed more organization. You need to have like a nice big panel which shows all your audio bouncing up and down, that's grouped into nice little categories. We need to extend the effects, so basically allow for people to do lots of more creative things. Control lots of effects together. So say if you have 1,000 dogs, you just apply an effect to dog, and it applies to all the dogs. So lots of really sort of like nice sort of organization. Control everything by script. That's really important. So I'm going to show you how you can like basically, as you get damaged in the game, you can increase the distortion filter of all audio in the whole game. And we need to keep existing concepts, such as you have an audio source that creates audio and an audio listener that receives audio, because obviously, if we broke that, everyone will go really angry. So in Unity 4, this would kind of be what happens in a game. So you'd have your audio listener, normally on your camera, and you have like a raw, you have like music, you have voices, you have UI button clicks, and that's all basically channeling into this one listener, and it's all becoming a bit of a mess and disorganized. So if you wanted to apply an effect to multiple things, you had to go in and apply them individually. So we needed to basically tighten this up a bit. So what we did is we created a thing called an audio mixer, which allows you to channel all your audio into subgroups and control those groups in one order. So for example, here we've got like a player voice and an enemy mirror going to sound effects. We've got music going into music. And you can basically make as many different types of groups as you want as possible. You can name them whatever you want. You can channel one group into another. You can basically structure the whole process. And then that goes into the listener. So it's basically kind of a middleman to basically organize all your audio and control lots of things. So if you wanted to say all sound effects echo, you just apply it to the sound effects, and everything channeling into there would do that like so. I'm going to show how this all works, don't worry. So in Unity 5.0, we've got loads of new audio features. So we now have a mixer. So it's a big interface, a big panel that allows you to see your audio bouncing up and down, allows you to control lots of different things. You have mixers and groups, which allows you to channel different sort of audio clips through different sections. We've extended the effects, and you can actually like write your own custom effects. So at the end, I'm going to show you lots of different effects that are basically on our Bitbucket, so you can download and put them into your game, like vocoders and all sorts of really Walkie Talkie sound effects and things like that. You can now do ducking as well, and I'll explain that a bit later on. You can do game state snapshots, so you can say, like, if you're in this room, there's a certain level echo, and when you go into the other room, the echo increases. So you can basically have certain sort of environments have different effects. And you can expose pretty much all of it to script as well, so you can basically go and modify certain specific values. So yeah, like I said, I hate PowerPoint, so let's go in. Hopefully this works. OK, so the audio is going to sound really, really horrible. And that's basically because every audio in this game, or every audio clip, is basically playing at sort of the same level. There's no tweaking, there's no mixing. And I'm going to go in and mix it and sort of like change it all. So we have a very simple game where you run around as a little boy. Of course, the little boy has a machine gun. And basically, you get attacked by all these zombie teddy bears, and you can kill them. There's a elephant, or like a big elephant up here. Hang on. Yeah, there is. And basically, when you get hit, you have... So yeah, super simple game, no audio mixing at all. And you can notice a lot of things. So for example, the background music is very imposing. It's very big, and it's basically overshadowing everything in the game. You've also got other sort of sound effects. You have the gunshot that's firing, which is clashing with the background music. So what you'll probably need to do is duck it. So when you shoot a gunshot, basically the background music dips underneath it to add more emphasis. We also have, for example, when you hit one of the bears, they have a sound effect playing as well. When your player gets hit, you get hit as well. And when you play the game, you can't really hear that happening. So you basically need to tweak it and modify it in lots of different ways to make it nice. So what we have down here, can you all see that? Cool. Except for that yellow thing is not a new feature, by the way. I'm not sure what that is. So what we have down here is we have a new audio mixing panel. And this is quite empty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new mixer. So what's the Finnish word for audio? Ni, like that? Oh, I don't have that on my keyboard. OK, I know. Assembly Mixer. That'll do, right? Sure. So what we have here is we have the mixers. And mixers you can use for lots of different things. You could have a mixer for a room. You could have a mixer for a character. You could have a mixer for basically the whole game audio and basically split it down. And a mixer is basically like one of those big groups. So we have here the mixer of Assembly Mixer. And one thing you'll notice is when we create it, we now have a group. We've basically got a master clip that's basically going to go to our listener and play all audio through. So and this allows you to do lots of things. So it allows us to like control that and sort of control the whole volume slider inside our game. And it basically allows you to channel lots of properties through it. Now, obviously, we don't want all of our audio going straight into the master. That's kind of really bad. So what we need to do is we need to split it up. So we have here groups. And these are kind of like subfolders of that mixer. So if I make a new group called SFX for my audio sound effects, if I create another one for music, let's create another one for something assembly related, like the Mad Croc tent. Mad Croc tent. Let's create another one for the everyone playing Hearthstone right now. But as you can see, as I add in new groups, they're basically going to add new columns. You can basically add in how many you want. You can have dogs, you can have birds, you can have people playing video games. It doesn't matter. You can basically sculpt it around your game. You're not like pigeonholed into a type of group. So now that we have that there, if I then zoom out, we play our game, in theory, you should see some bars bouncing up and down. But this is currently not happening, because what we need to do is you need to go to audio sources and tell them which group to be into, which group to filter into, which kind of where it goes back to here with the PowerPoint. So you can see enemy roar and player voice are going to get sound effects. We need to channel it like so. So let's do that. But before I do that, I need to make more groups. So we have here sound effects. And this is going to be all the sound effects for our game, like gunshots for like the enemies and for like the little boy and stuff like that. Now, we don't want everything going in there. We want to make things more organized. Now, obviously, if I had a bigger game, I'd have probably 1,000 of these groups across. And that kind of breaks it up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my mixers, add a second mixer, and call this SFX Mixer. So we've now got a second mixer group, and attach it onto our assembly mixer. And then I can channel it through SFX. So what we now have is we now have Assembly Mixer with all these sort of high-level groups, and we now have like a subgroup. So think of it like folders. So you have like a top folder of like pictures, and then inside all the subfolders are like locations. Inside them are like embarrassing photos or photos for Snapchat or something. Yeah, so basically you can have that whole structure. And inside SFX Mixer, let's add some more groups. So I've got one for enemies. OK, I spelled that wrong, but let's do that properly next time. For the player, because the player's obviously got lots of sound effects. And let's do another one for gunshots. Cool, so we now have a series of groups, and we have our mixer as well. And again, if I play my game, nothing is going to happen. So if I go into my background music, you can see here under the background music, we basically extended each audio source. So you don't have to use the system. You can play it like normal. But now what we can do is I can say background music, filter in to my music column on my player as well. My player has an audio effect as well. Filter in to my player. On my player, he's got like a little gun. Where is he? So yeah, he's got a little gun. Filter the gun into gunshots. So it's basically just filtering all these sort of groups in. We also have a whole bunch of enemies. And so we have a whole bunch of enemies. So if I select all my enemies, and then basically they all have audio sources, and let's filter them all into enemies. Now, oh, wrong one, don't go into player. So obviously I could have subgroups of my enemies, but because they're all, you know, the same, or roughly the same, that should be fine. So now let's play it. Oh, cool. So we can now actually see my music is bouncing when I shoot. You can see SFX is going to bounce as well. And if I go into my SFX Mixer, you can see when I shoot my gunshots, they're going to channel in. When I shoot my enemies, they're going to channel in. And when my player gets hit, and then he dies. So that hasn't mixed it at all. Basically, what that's done is it's now grouped it, so we can actually do lots of interesting things. So let me just turn off my enemy manager, because otherwise my enemies are just going to keep killing me, because I'm not very good at this game. And let's just have a look at this panel. So under each group, we have this slider. So we have, for example, like the music, so we can tone that up and down, so I can turn down the music a little bit. We have SMB, that does not stand for Super Meat Boy or Super Mario Bros. What that instead lets you do is solo or mute or bypass all effects on a clip. So if I now play this like here, I can mute my music. So basically only like, you know, that one's muted, so you can't hear it. I could solo my music. So I can basically, you know, test my game and not hear anything. And when I have effects, I can also bypass my effects. So basically turn them on and off and kind of hear what they sound like. But an annoying workflow would be something like this. So let's go to all of our sound effects. Let's go to the top corner, and let's increase the pitch of all our sound effects from 100% to 243. And if I test it, sounds like that. Now, if I want to tweak that, I'm going to have to leave, and I'm going to have to increase it a bit more, and then go back in. Yeah, that's a really bad workflow, because you're constantly popping out of one thing and then into another thing. However, what we did is we went against all design sort of like laws of Unity and built a edit and play mode button. So now, basically, you can now edit your audio clips live. So basically, I can go, OK, that sounds really bad. Let's tone it down. OK, that sounds really bad. Let's add a bit more of a punch to it. Like, OK, that sounds pretty cool, right? So basically, you can then go in and tweak all those effects live. So now that we have that, we can tone down the music. Let's actually tone it up a little bit. We can then play around with all sorts of different crazy effects. So if I go into my sound effects, we have here, by default, every group has a pitch, which you can tweak, and a volume. And what we also have is we have a whole bunch of sort of built-in effects here as well. So if I add in, say, a high-pass filter into our sound effects, it sounds like that. It sounds really bad, so let's like tone it. I can then add more effects. Let's add an echo as well. Tone down the pitch. OK, that sounds horrible. Actually, let's remove that, and let's add a high pass. Then tone that up. So yeah, you can basically go in and you can play around and add all these effects and sort of tweak them. So we have here high pass, low pass, distortion. So let's add a distortion filter and see what that actually does when I start shooting stuff. And increase it. OK, when you play mode, the echo continues, and I hope they never fix that bug. But yeah, so basically you can go and you can tweak and modify these different effects. Now that we've added distortion and we've added echo, if I turn back on my enemies, because all my enemies are going to that, that sound effects group, all my enemies will have the same thing. So let's mute that. So my gunshots sound a lot better. Now if I get hit, yeah. So basically, you can now apply in different effects. And so I haven't had to go into all my enemies and my gunshot and my player to basically add an echo and all those effects. I'm controlling it from just this one panel here. So if I go in, let's remove that effect, and let's remove that effect quickly. So we've basically got just our standard game. Now, one thing I don't like is when I shoot my gun, I want my gun to have a bit more punch. So currently, our background music is quite loud, and when my gun, when I shoot it, it's kind of staying the same. It's kind of a bit dulled out by the background music. So I could turn my background music down, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to pass a duck. So when something is played through my sound effects, it's going to duck underneath my background music clip. So let's go to here. So let's go to our sound effects panel. Let's go here. Let's send an effect. So we're going to send. We currently have nothing to send it. Let's go to our music, and let's receive. Oh, it's saying no sources connected, so then we can then hook it in and say music receive. And when I go over here into the receiving panel, nothing is there. Why? Okay, let's increase sender. Okay, that doesn't seem to want to work. I'll follow a bug report right now. Okay, I'm joking. I'll go on to something else quickly. So, okay, that doesn't work. But what you should be able to do is when you shoot, you then have a curve. You can define, you can dip around the background music into the background. So that's currently not working, so I'm just going to turn down the background music so my gunshot has a bit more of a punch. And then let's tone down my sound effects to be a bit more powerful. So it sounds like this. Okay, that sounds pretty badass. You got a question? Yeah, you should be able to. Yeah, you should. I have some demos later on that show that off. So yeah, I'll show you that a bit later on. Cool, so we have that there. So you can tweak all these effects and apply different things. But one thing we may want to do is we may want to do something like you go into an environment and you change a lot of the effects automatically. Beforehand, you'd have to write lots of code. But instead, what we have now is we have snapshots. So snapshots basically allow you to set up certain game states. This could be like pause and unpause. This could be your character is stunned, your character is not stunned. So if I go to this snapshot and I type in the room, we're now going to set all these effects for the room. So let's go to my sound effects, and let's add an echo. So my room sounds like this. OK, that's a bit much. Now, because my room is quite impactful, I don't want the echo to be as strong. So I'm going to turn down the dry mix of the room to 0. So now I have an echo on my room, but OK, that didn't do it. Hang on, it's the wet mix. Cool. So my echo is turned down a bit. And what I want to happen is when I walk into another environment, I want that wet mix to turn up. So you go into another environment, and then the echo increases over time. Luckily, in true Blue Peter fashion, I'm aware no one here knows what Blue Peter is. We have here a little box, which is in a mouse hole. And basically, I've got a little script that says when you enter, go to this snapshot. When you exit, go to this snapshot. So it's a really, really simple thing to set up. So let's turn off my enemies so none of my enemies kill me. And let's go back to here. And so we currently have a snapshot for the room. Let's set up a snapshot for mouse hole. So when we're in the room, our echo sounds like this. When we go to our mouse hole, I'm going to turn up the wet mix. So in the room, it's one setting, and in the mouse hole, it's another setting. So in room, it sounds like this, like there. And in mouse hole, it sounds like this. It's toned right up. So let's go back to the room. Now, if I go to my mouse hole, I've just got a super simple script, which basically says when you enter, transition to this snapshot over this amount of time. So you can do like nice fading. You can set it instantaneous, so just 0 transition time, or you can basically fade it over like 5 or 6 seconds. So what I'm going to do is now, because we make the mixer and it is basically an asset, you can see here that in our project folder, we have Mad Cook Tent, we have Hearthstone group, we have all the different groups that you can plug into scripts. So I'm just going to assign mouse hole to mouse hole, assign room to room, set the transition time to be, let's say, over, yeah, like 1 second. And let's see what this does. So So my gunshot sounds pretty impactful here, but it doesn't echo. And then if you now look into the mixer and then you select here, have a look at this wet mix. This wet mix should increase over time when we go in. So yes, you're basically transitioning between one effect and another effect. And the way the snapshots work is they stack up lots of effects. You don't have to say echo transition, then distortion transition, then this transition and stuff. It basically will, the snapshot will store all of your sort of data into one thing. It's kind of cool. So I have kind of one or two other things to show you. So the next one is, let's do some direct scripting. So we have here, if I turn on my enemies and I run around in the environment, let's turn up the audio because the audio is a bit... I have some enemies which I can kill. Jesus, okay, that's a lot. So if I get hit. Now, when I die, it then okay, so yeah, the distortion is happening in there quite well. So what we have here is we can do lots of things via script. So we have here a little health bar. So what we can actually do is with very little code, you can actually say, take the value from that health bar and apply it to a distortion filter or apply it to a different effect. Really, really easy to do. So let's say, rather than specific groups, let's say all audio in the game, as you get weakened, becomes more faded. So it's kind of like, who's played GTA here? Or Red Dead Redemption? So it's like when you get drunk in that game, everything in the game becomes more distorted and sort of changes over time. And sort of like becomes, yeah, more distorted. So what I can do here is I can go here. I can add a pitch shifter to all the audio in the game. So let's see what that sounds like. So as I decrease it, so yeah, so basically you can see that all the audio is changing. So let's set that back to 1. I'm actually going to go back to my sound effects and increase my pitch because I think that distortion is a bit too wild and wacky. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to here, and I want to expose pitch to script. I want to basically tweak this via code. So all I do is I can select, and you can do this by right-clicking any sort of like section. So you can do this max channels, do this pitch. You can expose this to script. So I'm going to expose pitch to script. So now that I've exposed it, a little arrow appears showing it's exposed. If you go down here, we have all the exposed parameters, so exposing pitch on the pitch shift on here. I can then put in here, do player hertz. So I can now say, when player hertz takes place, go to the audio mixer, assign player hertz this new value. So yeah, player hertz. Let's go back to our player. So if I open up the code for my player health, we've got a couple of things that we want to add in. So the first one is we want to import unityengine.audio. So we need to import in that namespace to access all the audio goodies that you have. Next, because we have that imported, you can basically, via script, you can like retrieve, you can set up audio mixer, audio snapshot, audio group, all that stuff. So we're targeting our main mixer. What we want to do is when we die, or when it restarts, we want to set the float of player hertz back to 1. You don't want to die, and then it resets the game, and then like it's still distorted. You want it to go back to 1. And then if I go down to the method saying take damage, we say take damage, apply this value of health, and then basically take away this. And so I go main mixer, set the float, go to player hertz, and basically apply whatever the slider value is and multiply it, because that's just a little tweak to make it sort of fine. So if I go back into there, that should be all OK. I go to my player. My script should be OK. And it's going to say it's looking for an audio mixer for me to target this script to. So I can go in here and assign up my assembly mixer. So now what should happen, and if I select my master, if you keep an eye on this pitch value, it should change every time I get hit. And you can hear it as well. So my gun has quite a lot of punch, actually. So let's go over here. Yeah, so you can see that just by one line of code, that already adds a lot of sort of mood and emphasis into your game. So you can see here, like, as I get more damaged, okay, so I was supposed to run around. You can hear everything becoming more distorted, and there's a lot more of an effect. So I have a little bit of time left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try doing that sending and receiving again. So let's go to music. Let's send something from the music. Oh, no, actually, that's wrong. Let's receive something from the music. So it's asking for an audio source. Let's send from the sound effect and assign the music receive. Please work. No, it does not. OK. Whatever. I'll show you something else. So we basically got like a really simple setup with lots of different sort of things, lots of different groups you can play around with. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some of the demos that our team has made. So if you want to go through those audio features individually and basically tweak them, have a look at them, study them, analyze them, we basically have an audio section on our Unity Learn website. So if you said, oh, Andy showed this off, but I want to know more about the specific thing, hopefully the Wi-Fi doesn't give out because everyone's playing League of Legends. Or downloading a new update for League of Legends, as they seem to release. Yeah, OK. Anyway, so you can go on our Unity Learn section, and they basically have lots of individual features. So if you're like, oh, I know more about snapshots and how to transition, they've got a specific video for that. On our Bitbucket as well, we have a whole bunch of different bits and pieces up here. We have here native audio plugins. So these are plugins that our audio team have scripted from scratch and basically put in that you can use in your own game. And I'll show you those in a second. And we have some audio demos as well to show how to use the audio mixer for like an equalizer, or if you want to do graphics, or like a particle system. I'll show you the native audio plugins first, because they're probably pretty cool. So if I open up one of the audio plugins, this is exactly what's going to be in the Bitbucket. So it's all audio driven. There's some programmer art, so ignore that. So you can see here that the way this has been set up. Hang on, if I actually open the right scene, that might help. No, don't beach ball. What are you doing? OK, cool. OK, let's go to here. So what you can see here is we already have loads of different mixers. So this demo is a really good example of using different mixers for different scenes. So we have one for like a car engine, one for like fire and stuff. So if I go into play, we have a whole bunch of different things. So if I go into, let's say, a car engine, and I open up the car engine thing, you can see that basically that's just taking the car asset and then basically increasing it over time. So you can basically tweak different values using that. We also have weather sounds. So if I increase wind speed and rain, you can basically hear sort of like different levels of weather. You can see the flutter is bouncing up and down. So these demos show you how, via script, you can actually sort of control lots of different elements. So if I increase the thunder level, you can hear it in the distance. Let's leave that. Water drops. So water drops takes like one sound effect and basically modifies it and tweaks it enough. So and basically it plays it through different sort of areas, and you can modify that one clip. So you don't have to load in like 30 water drop sound effects. You can basically load in one and basically tweak it quite a lot. And if you're an audio developer, you're going to be very happy, so you don't have to make 20 times the amount of stuff.
Hello, and again, welcome to the
So this basically shows you like a clip with a pitch shifter applied on top of it. This one's pretty cool. So the audio then plays based on like the collisions. So as it's hitting the speed of the collision, it's getting a lot of data from the physics, and then it's applying that on top. So if I go back into there, so rather than it's playing the same effect, you can hear it's actually modifying based on how it hits these objects. So you could do lots of really cool like sort of physics-based audio there. Yeah, programmer art, awesome. We also have an example of lots of impact. So you notice it's not kind of the same sound effect playing over and over again. It's modified very slightly. We have sliding. That's basically the same sound effect modified to sound like different sound slashes. Yeah. We also have this reverb. So that's just a custom effect that they've applied on top. We got a couple of those. This is something I recorded with my own voice. But it's basically showing you're getting the pitch, and then you can visualize it and tweak it. You can even do it. OK, you can even record it, and it would then apply the same pitch. So hello, hello, play it, is sort of working, but you can see as I'm talking, it's bouncing, and you can see that you can actually get that data and put it somewhere in a game or something like that. You also have this vocoder, which isn't really working. Walkie Talkie. So that's basically just the custom effect of a walkie talkie. It's here somewhere. Basically, you can see here that on the side, they've created their own effects and put this in this bundle. So you can basically play around with them. You can tweak them as well. So I can go in and I can edit in play mode. And so yeah, you can play around with all these sort of like different custom effects. So let's go back. I've got a couple other really cool ones. Yeah, you can see here we've got this demo amount, and then as you increase it, you can see that all these visualizers are then going to pulse out. So let's increase. You can see it's more scattered, so you can take the audio and visualize it and sort of tweak it in lots of different ways. Let's turn that down. Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of examples. So one last thing that I'll show you before sort of finishing is this techno demo. So you have all those different visualizers and sequencers, and you can play around with all those different effects and load them in. So if you need a walkie-talkie of a voice, so let's say the teddy bears, when they shoot them, they're neon teddy bears or techno teddy bears, and they basically have a walkie-talkie sound effect. If I go into this test, basically, this example shows you an audio mixer being used as an actual live mixer. So currently here, all the audio levels are all the mixers are dropped down to as low as they can possibly be, so there's no volume. Come on, don't beach ball. Cool, so there isn't really anything happening here. So if I then tone up different things, so this is then applying effects to like a particle. So you can see as it's playing, and basically this is getting all the values from the audio mixer and then passing it in. And you can see that as and there's one that kind of makes it freak out a little bit. So. Sorry, audio people. So you can see that you can actually take the audio mixer, and you can use Unity for like audio visualizations and things like that in a concert maybe. You can see that as I tweak different values, it's changing lots of these sort of things in the scene. You can see it's just a particle system that's being tweaked. So yeah, pretty cool, eh? One last project. So I've got a bit of time left because that ducking didn't work. So this last one shows you fading between different snapshots. So we had beforehand different 2 snapshots, but what this demo instead shows is it shows you if you have an environment, you could basically have, you have a drama slider. So currently the audio is very sort of idle. And then as I increase, it changes to different tones. So as you go through it, but then it drops down to chase 1. So like Metal Gear Solid, when it ramps up, your game ramps up kind of. So that's discovery, and then kind of idle suspense, and then you get noticed by an enemy, and yeah. So that demo basically shows you how you can use all these different things to actually add in kind of an overlaying effect. And these are all in here. So the native audio plugins has all like the fire and the water drops and stuff. The audio demos has that techno, and you can go in, you can rip them out, you can tweak them, look at how you played around with them, do all sorts of really cool bits and pieces. Put the walkie-talkie on something, I don't know, your own voice. Might be pretty cool. So yeah, so Unity 5 features. So you have that mixing interface, which allows you to see and visualize different things. Mixers and groups to channel different elements. Extending effects, you can write your own effects. I'm going to try and write an effect which sounds like Lars Ulrich's tin drum in Saint Anger for when he recorded that terrible album. You can do ducking between different groups, which sort of didn't work for me. Game state snapshots, like walking into different environments in the different phases. And expose it all to script as kind of like that pulsing demo sort of shows. So what now? So you have all the Unity Learn tutorials, which are like bite-sized 5, 10-minute things on specific areas. You have those Bitbucket example assets you can go in, dig through, analyze, put into your games. We have loads of developer blog posts, how our development team actually built them and how they worked with different audio people to make something that audio developers really like. It's one thing that we found, or I found talking to teams, is they kind of do the design phase of audio and the design phase of a game. They make the prototype, they then make the game and the art, they then play test it, and then they kind of chuck in audio in the last 2 days before they ship it, and they don't really think about it. Whereas most of the biggest and best games that are most well known, like Hotline Miami, Legend of Zelda, Mario, Portal, like the audio really makes a lot of the atmosphere, and basically it's really ingrained in from the start. And what audio people said is they needed these tools to be able to do stuff like that and be able to tweak things and play around with it so they can actually kind of do things from the get-go. So that's kind of why we made the audio tools. So it allows audio people to have a lot more emphasis on sort of like the gameplay and things and have everything ingrained so well. So we have that Nightmares game, the game where you shoot the teddy bears. You can download that and play with it. We also have Unity Labs, which is a big science lab, which you can walk around. And each different room has a different mixer. We have those demos. So you have lots of stuff to play around with, not as homework, but for fun, right? And that's pretty much the end. I know I finished a little bit early, so if anyone has any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. If not, just come up. I'll be wandering around today. I'm a big League of Legends fan, so I'm probably going to find a table somewhere and just play League of Legends. So add me, or just come and talk about Unity and stuff like that. So thank you.
The native plugins you have built in the system, is it possible for the users to build themselves? What are they based on? Does it have support for VST plugins, for example, or what kind of underlying system are you using for that?
There's like 3 questions there. So the first, so yeah, people can build them themselves. So the ones that are built in, like if I go back to it, okay, let's select music. So the stuff here, like send receiver, duck, pitch shifter, those are built into Unity. And then basically those are built in to have like a base level. And then what our audio team did is they made all those other extensions like the equalizer and things like that and the Walkie Talkie voice. Kind of an example of how you create your own ones. So you can go in and get those and you can sort of customize that. So audio team made those demos based off of like what people can do themselves. So it's kind of like as an example of like most people probably will just be happy with these and mixing and matching them. But I know some people who are like audio programmers will probably want to have more control and have more effects and things specific to their game. So that's why we have those demo examples of lots of different things of how people can create their own. Some of them are created through, I think, C++, some of them through C#. So there's kind of, you can look through and you can strip out and sort of play around with it. So I'm going to put the Walkie Talkie on a game and see how that sounds and maybe modify it. So yeah. You had another question about VST? I assume so. I can find out for you. If I don't know, the audio team do know, so I can go ask them. So you have my contact details anyway. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. It should do, I think. Cool. It's difficult to see people because this light is so bright. OK, cool. Thank you. Kitos. Cheers, Sammy.